Hello everybody, and today we'll be taking a look at the ATD. Now the EOS ATD is a direct successor to the EOS 70D, which was released not too long ago actually, but Canon has put a new sensor in the EOS ATD, which is now a 24.2 megapixel sensor compared to the 20.2 megapixel sensor of the 70D, so you have 4 megapixels extra to work with. That's 4 million pixels extra. Now, if we look at the ATD in terms of the external build, it's going to be a very familiar layout compared to the previous models. Not much has been moved around, but there are some minor tweaks. So for example, the speaker has been moved to just above the viewfinder, so it actually faces you compared to being on the side of the camera on the previous models like the 70D, which didn't make much sense at all. The sound was going off to the side. So right now the speaker you can actually hear the speaker when you're playing back videos on the screen. Now the stereo mics have also been moved to in front of the camera. There's one on the left of the camera right next to the model badge, and there's one on the right just above the lens mount. So it makes much more sense now because they're facing forward compared to being on top of the camera around the hot shoe area on the previous models. There is still no dedicated white balance button. Come on man, even the 1200D has that. Now finally, Canon has put a headphone jack on the ATD. This is the first camera in the double-digit D lineup to feature a headphone jack after fans were screaming at Canon for God knows how long. So finally, a nice headphone jack. You can even set an independent output volume level for the headphone jack, which doesn't influence the input gain of either the onboard microphones or the line-in inputs of the ATD, so you can monitor at a comfortable volume level. Very much like the 7D Mark II, a feature which even the 5D Mark III doesn't have. The depth of field preview button is still located below the lens mount, and the camera comes with an LPE6 battery, not the newer LPE6N for some reason. Now the ATD is welcomed with a new and redesigned user interface, similar to what you get on the 7D Mark II. So with this new user interface, you get smoother animations, the font is different, and the menu design is much more organized. And now you can actually scroll through the image metadata in the playback menu to view a whole lot more info. For example, the lens, the focal length, and even more. The picture style has also been upgraded. You can now set detailed parameters for the sharpness setting. So apart from just the strength setting, you can now also set the level of fineness, aka the radius, and you can also set the threshold for the sharpening, so you have more control over the sharpening filter. There's also a new fine detail picture style, which was probably carried over from the 5DS and 5DSR. You can also set toning and filter effects for the monochrome picture style. The ATD also has a new shutter drive mechanism. I can notice that the viewfinder blackout is ever so slightly shorter, and there are less vibrations when you do fire the shutter. And it does sound a lot more tamed compared to the 70D. So this is what it sounds like. There is also the silent shutter release mode. It's not that much more silent, personally. Now the ATD also has an anti-flicker mode, which we first saw in the 7D Mark II. Now anti-flicker is a feature that you can turn on or off, but it's particularly useful when you're shooting under light sources that flicker, such as fluorescent lighting. Now the good thing about anti-flicker mode is even if you have it turned off, it will display a warning inside your viewfinder if it detects that the current light source you're shooting in is actually flickering. Now you can actually turn that off in the viewfinder settings, but if you leave it on, it will let you know even if anti-flicker has been disabled. So basically what anti-flicker does is it alters the timing of each shot so that the photo is only taken when the flickering light source is in its on cycle. It will, however, ever so slightly decrease your continuous shooting speed. So from my tests, each shot was delayed by about 0.02 seconds. It's a very small difference, but it's definitely there. Now another feature I really like on the ATD is that there are now priority settings for auto white balance. You can set it to ambience priority or white priority. So if you have it on ambience priority, it will preserve the color of the ambient light. It won't correct everything to flat white. So for example, if you're in a cafe with tungsten lighting and it has an orange yellowish tint to it, and you have it on ambient priority, it will preserve some of that orange yellowish tint. If you have it on white priority, it would just correct everything to flat white, which may look very unnatural in some cases. But then you have the liberty of choice to pick whether you want to prioritize whiteness or ambience. There's also the intervalometer function on the ATD, so it can take a maximum of 99 shots. If you want to take more than that, you can set it to 0, which is unlimited, and then you can stop it manually once you're done. There's also a bulb timer for long exposures, and of course the dual pixel CMOS AF. It works very well just as expected, except now on the ATD you can set the speed of the focus pull when you have servo AF enabled in video mode. You can also set it to be reactive or locked on to tracking a single subject, and it works well most of the time. However, being AF, it will not be fully reliable. There will be times when it just drifts out of focus. Aside from dual pixel CMOS AF, the conventional phase detection AF has also been upgraded. So from 19 AF points you get on the 70D, you have been given a whopping 45 AF points on the ATD. And if that's not good enough, all 45 of them are cross-type. Now the ATD does not have GPS, but it does have Wi-Fi, and it's moved on from the old EOS Remote app to the new Canon Camera Connect app. Personally, I really like the move because it is working much better than the EOS Remote app. And finally, you can actually use it in video mode. You can use the Canon Camera Connect app to remotely start and stop your video recording when you're paired to the camera by Wi-Fi. Now if you look on the left of the ATD, there is an NFC tag. However, for me, the NFC tag is a little pointless and counterintuitive because all it does is it just launches the Canon Camera Connect app on your phone, and if you don't even have the app installed, it would just redirect you to the Play Store and ask you to install the app. Unfortunately, on the ATD, there's no such thing as one-touch pairing via NFC like some Bluetooth devices which do that. All the NFC chip does is it just launches the freaking app on your phone. That's it. No more, no less. On the ATD, we now actually have an extra C mode as well, so you now have C1 and C2 modes, so that's great. You have one extra C mode profile to work with. And also there's a whole bunch of creative filters on the ATD. There's even a mode on the mold dial dedicated to creative filters, which most of us probably won't even use. Now in terms of image quality, there isn't much improvement over the 70D, much to my disappointment. In terms of dynamic range and low light, there's basically no improvement in terms of dynamic range. Now in terms of low light performance, ISO 1600 looks moderately clean, but you can see some noise. ISO 3200 looks kinda messy, and ISO 6400 just looks really bad. Now one nice touch Canon's added to the ATD is you can now do 60 FPS in 1080p, which previously you could only do so in 720p. And instead of saving the video files into a MOV file, it now saves them into MP4 files for some reason. So all in all, the ATD is a pretty good camera. However, if I were to sum it up in one sentence, I would say it's a discount 70 Mark II. Because basically what's Canon done with the ATD is they've taken the feature set of a 70 Mark II and they've crammed it into the body of a 70D with improved specs, and they called it the ATD. So for me, the ATD really is very much like a downgraded 70 Mark II in a lighter body. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because comparing to the 70D, the ATD is a very pleasant upgrade. It has a lot more features than the 70D, and it's a great camera to use. It's a very good multi-purpose camera, and along with many tweaks that make a lot of sense and adds more convenience to the user. So yes, the ATD is a very good camera, and it's definitely a worthy upgrade from the 70D. So that's pretty much it for my review of the ATD. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or any comments, just leave them in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it was helpful. Subscribe for more videos. And that's pretty much it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.